Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to resilience, business continuity, testing, COVID, crisis management, anything that can help you, your organization, or your community prepare for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I am the only Alex Fullick there. I'm really easy to find, and I do respond to everything I get. Longtime listeners, you know I love to read. I read everything, books, articles, postings, anything that comes through my way. And a while ago, there was an article by today's guest that captured my attention. And I thought, hey, this is a good, interesting topic. Let's talk about this one. And it had to do with testing and exercising and objectives. And I'd like to welcome to the show the author of that, a longtime business continuity expert and professional that many of us know, Charlie Maclean-Bristol. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for inviting me, Alex. And I think I am the only Charlie Maclean-Bristol in the world, so we share a certain amount of uniqueness there. I can also say thanks very much for having on the show. I did notice in looking through your episodes, you had all the great and the good of business continuity and crisis management worldwide. So we could, at the end, you could the listeners can make a decide whether I'm one of the great and the good or just another person on your session. So anyway, yes, happy to be here.
Well, let's get that started then. I know you and I have sent emails back and forth and chat a little bit, and I know a little bit about you, but just in case people around the world, to your point, aren't quite sure who Charlie Maclean-Bristol is, can you take a minute or two and tell us about yourself, what you do, and how you got into this crazy industry?
All right, yeah. So it was not the early years. So always in my life, I was always going to the army. I'm like fifth generation army, and I think I'm fourth generation. Actually, no, my soldiering heritage. My dad does genealogy, and that goes back to the sort of beginning of time. But I'm fourth generation, my regiment. So I was always going to the army. So went to university, went to the army, and then decided to get out before you're 30 or stay until you're 55. So decided to get out before I was 30. And I was looking around for an interesting job. And I kind of couldn't find any interesting jobs at all. And I came across this thing called emergency planning, which was, so this was 1995. And emergency planning looked really interesting. It looked like just the sort of thing that I might be interested in. And I saw this advert in the Times, so the Times newspaper, and it said, emergency planner required for Anglian water, 10 years experience, chemical stroke engineering degree. And I had spent a couple of days working for a local authority, so I had 2 days experience and a degree in history and international relations. And I applied for this job, and being young and enthusiastic, they gave me the job. And it was emergency planning was just beginning then, and my predecessor had been planning for post-nuclear war. So there was a role within the water industry whose job it was to plan for 10 liters of water per head per day for 10% of the population who are going to be left over post-nuclear war. And so he was an old retired air commodore or something, did that for 3 years of his life. And then we'd done the change from deciding that maybe there wasn't going to be nuclear war and we were all going to die, or 90% of them were all going to die, that actually it was much more useful for the water companies to plan for what happens if we have no water, what happens if we have contaminated water, what happens if we have sewage flooding, because that was probably a much more useful thing to do. So I spent sort of 8 happy years doing that. Absolutely loved it. And then I kind of felt a little bit I had the best job in the country for emergency planning. And so I moved over to business continuity because I thought that seemed to be better paid than emergency planning. So moved over to business continuity and ended up doing business continuity for Scottish Power Company for 3 years. Joined a consultancy because um, I got employed to reply to an audit. They'd had an audit, and they basically got a C in the audit, and then the organization got another C. The managing director of my division was going to be sacked, so they employed me to get up to to get to the standard. So for two years, I got them up to the standard. Once they got the standard, they were no longer interested in business continuity at all. Anytime I want to do anything, say, Charlie, just don't bother us. Go away and do whatever you do. So I was desperately bored. So I joined a consultancy. Um, Joined another consultancy, and then that consultancy made me redundant. And last refuge of a scoundrel. If all else fails, you have to work for yourself because that's when all the jobs run out. You have to work for yourself. So work for myself, and I started on the kitchen table. So I formed a company called Plan B Consulting, and we've been going for about 17 years, and we do business continuity consulting, crisis management, cyber incident management. So I've been doing that for 17 years. I also formed with my brother a company called Business Continuity Training, which is a very original name. It does what it does. And we run a training company doing Business Continuity Institute franchise trainings as well. So he does most of the work and does most of the training. Or he does the back office work. I do some of the training along with other tutors. So that is my sort of career to date. Plan B, operate mainly in the UK, a little bit in the States, a little bit worldwide. And yeah, so we're 12 people strong. So that is very short potted history. My
And
career
here
to
you
date.
are. Now
Yeah.
we're going to talk about testing and exercising.
Yeah.
Well, as I said, it was the article that was on that was distributed by another business continuity related group that caught my attention. And it had to do with testing and exercising and objectives. But there were some things that you addressed in the article that were also beyond just objectives. So I kind of want to touch on some of these. And the first thing I want to ask you is, why do we need to test and exercise in the first place?
Yeah, I think, if you go back to the good practice guidelines, one of the things it says is, no plan is can be ready to go before it's validated. So I think that is the first one. It's interesting that talk about testing and exercising. I don't know if this is we're two nations divided by a common language, the United States and here. I think you use the terminology more testing, perhaps in the United States than we do. We're sort of very sort of clear is maybe use it the same way, is normal exercising is exercising. Testing is more IT pass or fail. Can you restore System X to its RTO within 12 hours? Well, you can, you can't. There's pass or
Mhm.
fail on that one. Whereas our one is more of the exercising. But I think it is that the whole point is to say you need to be able to respond, and you need to be able to respond to the incident, and you need to be able to do that sort of continual improvement of the plans. And there's so often, I was doing exercising yesterday, I was doing a cyber exercise yesterday, but so often the people say, "Oh, I never thought of that, never thought of that, I never thought of that." And I think one of the things, just coming on that whole realm that COVID has tested us, was that there were lots and lots of organization never had any business continuity, weren't prepared for COVID. I don't think anyone was properly prepared for COVID, but they didn't have business continuity like many organizations we've probably worked with, and your listeners have probably worked with. But they made it up as they went along, and most people did a pretty good job of it. They'll have some problems with comms, but but I think there's two things from COVID that we need to take away and is relevant to exercise. First, in COVID, everyone was in the same boat and nobody was prepared for it. So, you couldn't do too badly because the fact was that nobody was doing really well. So there wasn't that differentiation. There also wasn't with a lot of business continuity institutes, it's that organization having a cyber incident, that incident having an IT outage, them having a major reputational issue. Not everyone else is doing it. So I think that's the different COVID. And I think the also different planning the testing and exercising is that anybody can recover with enough time and you can make it up as you go along. But if you don't hit that with a standing start, you start behind the curve, you're always being reactive, and it's very difficult to catch up. And if you set the tone at the beginning of the incident, if it looks to your staff and your customers and your interested parties that company's a real chaos. They don't really clue what they're doing. They put out contradictory statements. They wouldn't tell any staff. They didn't do that. It's very difficult to get back in front of the curve. If you test and practice your exercises, then it might not be 100%, but at least you say, "Yeah, we're doing that. We're doing that. We're doing this. We've got this. We've got this out there. We're informing the staff. We're doing a response. Oh, these guys know what they're doing." You have confidence, and it might not be all 100% right, but at least you start with a beginning well, and then hopefully you continue that on. So to me, it's that almost like that initial bit is really getting that well and making sure that you hit the ground running and don't be reactive. You're proactive.
I like what you said there about confidence. It's you're creating confidence from external sources saying, "Hey, those guys have got their act together or they're doing quite well." But it also builds confidence within your organization because I get to practice. I'm not being thrown to the fire. I've been led along and I've got to contribute to it. So I feel better about doing this when something happens.
Yeah. No, and I think that's also within, one of your absolutely key stakeholders is going to be your staff. And actually, if the staff think you're incompetent, then
Yeah.
it is they won't do the extra hours, they won't put themselves out and say, what's the point? So I think it is with that sort of initial with the staff is important too.
Now, with testing, and in your article, you talked about objectives. Why are objectives important, and how do we go about even establishing them?
Yeah, I think one of the things I think with exercise is and this is a slightly typical, maybe a generalization. You get asked in as a consultant or as an internal person to do an exercise, and someone says, "We've got to do an exercise." So, yeah, we all really know, we pretty much agree we need to do an exercise. Right. What scenario are we going to do? And we're going to come up with the most dastardly scenario that catches them out, or the person who's sort of sponsoring the exercise. So we think we ought to do that. And you come up with some dastardly scenario, which is going to catch them out, which they haven't thought about. And so you try and put that out to try and be clever and catch out the organization and hopefully that, oh, that's a very good bit. We never thought of that. But also I think there is sometimes a problem with exercising that it's I don't know if your readers are familiar with the idea of sort of escape rooms where you'll put in a room and you're given a sort of problem and you have to solve a whole lot of
Oh,
clues in
yes,
the
yes.
rooms and get out of the is it, you call them escape rooms, do you?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So escape rooms like that. And it's almost like exercises are almost entertainment. They're almost Disney-esque in terms of, you're given a problem and you're thrown into this scenario and you've got to sort of solve your way out of the problem. And sometimes I almost think people think of exercises as entertainment. And the senior executives, because it's a bit of fun from their normal day life, we look forward to the exercise because it's really fun, and they'll choose in some dastardly things that we got to deal with it. And I think, unfortunately, exercises don't have to be that exciting. And I think we too often do it as entertainment and too little is getting the value out of it. And I think often, people like all singing what we call simulated exercises with you got phone calls in, you got social media and interviews and things. And people love that kind of stuff. But often the lessons that can be learned from that are not lessons that are actually that useful. And if you make a whole load of mistakes in that, you never learn the lessons because you kind of you're not in it long enough. And also certain scenarios or certain elements of your response require something that works over a long time. Because the more senior you get, the actual initial response is not going to be done by then. That's going to be done with the people, it could be on the site, it could be in the country. And actually, the crisis comes in day 3 and day 4 when it goes badly, not in the first 3 hours of an incident. And often people play that first 3 hours of the incident because
Mm.
that's the exciting bit. And if you're doing a simulated exercise with all singing, all dancing, phone calls in, it has to be in real time. So I think that for me, there are sort of four things you want to think about when you're doing your exercise and what you're trying to do, your objectives. Your objectives, like all good objectives, is busy defining what you're trying to achieve. And once you have that discussion with your client or your sponsor and the organization you do it from, then you can start trying to understand what are we trying to achieve. And out of that, then comes the scenario and also the format of the exercise. Like how are we going to do it? Are we actually going to sit around and discuss it? And we're going to do that discussion over a number of time frames. That can be a lot more useful and informative and a learning experience than doing the running around bit. There is a place for running the round bit, and I love run simexes, but so the first one is about the scenario. Are you trying to understand the scenario, and is the scenario important? Like flavor of the month is ransomware and cyber exercises. When we did the exercise yesterday, there's a huge amount of knowledge which you need to know as a senior manager or responding to cyber incident. And I'm talking my expertise is not in the techie bit, my expertise in the crisis management. So, sort of not a lot of people know that you want to do your threat intelligence is one of you really important because if you've been cyber attacked by Hive or Lockbit or Revil or some of these organizations, I think Hive and Revil are not on the go at the moment, but if you've been attacked by then you actually need to say, well, actually, I know who these people are. They have a people, we know who they are, they have a modus operandi, they have ways of working. So I need to understand that. And that will help inform your crisis team to say, actually, this is a straight ransomware attack to actually this is a hacktivist group. Also, what you need to know is to say the techies can put the malware into a sandbox and then tell you what the software is. That will maybe give you an indication who's done it. Is it a nation state after you? Very different, complex if a nation state is after you than actually if a hacktivist is after you. What are they after? So within the scenario, you can have quite a focused exercise. This is what we did yesterday about actually the exercise is about the group understanding the nuances of the scenario. So that is, you can have very focused on the cyber bit, or you can have, say, actually, what we're doing is we're introducing people to plans. So have a very simple scenario. Your head office just burned down, and we're not really focusing on the scenario. It's about that's just a focus of what we're going to do, but we're going to focus on other elements there. So the next thing is about the plans and procedures. So do your plans work? Does it have the right things about in it? Is it workable? Does the information right there? If you've got forms in your plans, how often do you have all these reams of forms you're meant to fill in? So how often do you actually practice an exercise doing them and get them to fill them in? So if they don't fill them in exercise, they're going to fill them in real life. They're just going to
Or even
ignore
or
them.
even people knowing that they exist.
Or people knowing they exist. And the point is, if you say it's familiarizing people with the plan, there's no point doing a format of an exercise where they chuck the plan in the corner and make it up as they go along. So if that's really important as your objective, because they're new people to plan, you've got a new plan, you're actually much better sitting down and saying, right, building's burned down. Let's turn to page one. What does page one do? Go through that checklist, go through that evaluation of the incident. And it's maybe a bit boring for them, but actually that is what they need to do. So there's the plans and procedures there. The next thing is about instant management skills. I do think there are some particular skills you need to have that are not particular to managing incidents, but things like decision making under pressure. Senior managers don't like that, on the whole, don't like that. They're used to oh, we've got to make a decision here. Write me a paper. Alex, write me a paper on this. Don't really like your paper. Write me another paper because that paper wasn't quite right. And they'll do that and they'll send it around lots of people and they'll get lots of explanations and work out the budget and, takes 3 weeks, 3 months, 6 months, a year to make a decision. Where actually, no, you're going to make a decision in the next 10 minutes. Are you going to pull your plug on your cyber systems, take all your systems down, or you're not? And the only way we'll ever know whether it's right or wrong is hindsight.
Yeah.
So
When it comes to decision making, sometimes it takes so long that people will just go ahead and do what they need to do based on what they know. They won't
yeah,
wait for that decision because they know that they don't have time to go through
yeah,
that, various levels and all that other stuff. So, people have to be prepared, like you said. You got to
yeah,
know how to make, decisions have to be made in, I think you said 10 minutes and maybe even
yeah.
less.
Yeah, and if your domino system is falling over, then you need to go and say, well, look, sometimes the IT guy will say, well, I'll pull the plug 10 minutes. I didn't wait for your decision. And then the senior managers need to say, actually, are we happy for this guy to do that? Or are we not happy to do that? you know, and then we need to have another process, or we need to have a protocol, or we need to say, no, actually, it always must come to us, but then you need to have a process to do it quickly. Then there's things like logging, there's things like situational awareness, information management, which are all key processes which help the good manage the incident. So we might have to have an objective round about that. So say, typically we'll do a half day's training, 3 weeks later, we'll do the exercising. Well, as part of my exercise, I want to kind of build in the elements of decision making. So I want to build in whatever the scenario is, I want to build in a decision that they have to make. And so I can check that if I've taught them how to make decisions, I want to do that. Or um if they have administration people who support the team, I want them to, at the end of the exercise, to read back all the actions to check that everyone knows what they're doing. So I want to actually, that's a key bit, and I need to configure the exercise so that that does, and they get an opportunity to practice that. And then last for me, there is within the objectives is leadership and team working. So do I want to maybe it's an early team and to say actually there's 15 in the team and I know fine well that's far too large, but they put 50 in the team, that's the way. So do I want to configure the exercise in such a way that, or get feedback in such a way to say at the end, look, was that too many? And they go, yeah, 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 Charlie, yeah, we should listen to you, or that was I think, we should, we far too many people. We didn't make a decision. It was chaos. Next exercise or next plan, we will have 7 or 8. So there's that sort of leadership and team ranking. So I think you had to have a really good discussion with whoever sponsor it or your client there and go through these things and decide what are we trying to achieve by this. And then out of that will come maybe they have it determined. Maybe we've been told we need to do a cyber exercise. Fine, that's fine. But if you're not doing if you're not being told the scenario, then you have to kind of think a little bit of what are we trying to achieve, and then what scenario would suit that. Sometimes you do want to make a point to say, actually, you've always been saying that this is no problem. I know this is a problem, so I'm going to flood the data center because I know it sits on a floodplain. All right, yeah, yeah, we've ignored that. So you can make sometimes a point with scenarios, but in the whole, the scenario is roundabout trying to drive the exercise. And the last thing I just want to say say some more about objectives is often people have aims and objectives, and I've never met a person who writing aims and objectives can never work out what is the difference between an aim and an objective. So what I normally do is teaching is to say, actually, let's have purpose. So the purpose is why we are running the exercise. So it might be requirement to run an annual exercise, or maybe it's a regulatory requirement, or maybe it's an audit or whatever reason. So I think it's a good in part of your exercise instructions saying purpose, why are we doing this? Because again, if you've got a purpose running the exercise, there may be some requirements come out of that. So I'm sure some of your listeners will be with familiar operational resilience, and that's a UK thing out the Bank of England for financial institutions. So it has an excise element, but it has a very you need to decide upon your the services you deliver, you have to actually demonstrate that you can meet them under this scenario circumstancing, and it needs to be an extreme but plausible scenario, which is quite sort of more stage left the more some of the scenarios that we do. So there might be some very definite requirements which you need to build into your exercise. So that's some thoughts on sort of writing objectives and or determining the objectives first.
Well, believe it or not, this ends my first segment talk with Charlie Maclean-Bristol. We talked a lot longer than what we had planned on, so join us in a few moments for segment 2. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave me a message and let me know your thoughts. Of course, don't forget to subscribe, and in the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.